Hello. It's time for the second canto. The argument, a friar between two rivals parts the fray. By magic art, Rinaldo hasteth home, but in ambassage he is sent away. When tempest makes the sea to rage and foam, Bradamant seeks her spouse, but by the way, while she about the country wild did roam, met Pinabel, who by a crafty train both sought and thought the lady to have slain. O blind god love, why takest thou such delight with darts of divers force our hearts to wound? By thy too much abusing of thy might, this discord great in human hearts is found. When I would wade the shallow ford aright, thou drawest me to the deep to have me drowned. From from those love me, my love thou dost recall, and place it where I find no love at all. Thou makest most fair unto Rinaldo seem Angelica, that takes him for a foe, and when that she of him did well esteem, then he disliked and did refuse her though, which makes her now of him the less to deem. Thus, as they say, she renders quid pro quo. She hateth him, and doth detest him so, she first will die, ere she will with him go. Rinaldo, full of stately courage, cried, Down these from off my horse, or thief rather, down thief from off my horse, down by and by. So robbed to be I never can abide, but they that do it dearly shall abide. Also this lady you must leave beside, else one of us in her defence will die. A horse so good and such a goodly dame, to leave unto a thief it were a shame. What, me a thief? Thou in thy throat dost lie, quoth Sacripant, that was as hot as he. Thief to thyself, thy malice I defy, for as I hear, the name is due to thee. But if thou dare thy might and manhood try, come take this lady, or this horse from me, though I allow in this of thine opinion, that of the world she is the matchless minion. Like as two mastiff dogs with hungry maws, moved first to hate, from hate to raging ire, approach with grinning teeth and grisly jaws, with staring eyes as red as flaming fire, at last they bite and scratch with teeth and claws, and tear themselves and tumble in the mire. So after biting and reproachful words, did these two worthy warriors draw their swords. One was on foot, the t'other on a horse. You think, perhaps, the horseman vantage had. No sure, no wit, he would have wished to scorse. No sure, no. For why at last to light he must be glad. The beast did know thus much by nature's force, to hurt his master were a service bad. The pagan could not, nor with spur nor hand, make him unto his mind to go or stand. So that's supposed to be scarce, wish to, but I don't know what that means. Okay. To barter. To exchange their positions. He stops when he should make a full career. He runs or trots when he would have him rest. At last, to throw his rider in the mire, he plungeth with his head beneath his breast. But Sacripant, that now had small desire at such a time to tame so proud a beast, did work so well at last by sleight and force. On his left side he lighted from his horse. When from Bayardo's over furious might the pagan had himself discharged so, with naked swords there was a noble fight. Sometimes they lie aloft, sometimes alow, and from their blows the fire flies out in sight. I think that Vulcan's hammers beat more slow, where he within the mountain Etna's chaps doth forge for Jove the fearful thunderclaps. What are chaps? Like crevices? Okay. I guess so. Sometimes they proffer, then they pause a while. Sometimes strike out like masters of the play. Now stand upright, now stoop another while, now open lie, then cover all they may. Now ward, then with a slip? With a slip the blow beguiles. No, beguile. Now forward step, now back a little way, now round about, and where the twan gives place, there still the other presseth in his place. Rinaldo did the pagan prince invade, and strike at once with all the might he could. The other doth oppose against the blade, a shield of bone and steel of temper good. But through the same a way Fusberta made Rinaldo's sword, and of the blow resounded all the wood, the steel, the bone, like ice in pieces broke, and left his arm benumbed with the stroke. Which when the fair and fearful damsel saw, and how great damage did ensue thereby, she looked pale for anguish and for awe, like those by doom that are condemned to die. She thinks it best herself from hence withdraw, else will Rinaldo take her by and by, the same Rinaldo whom she hateth so, though love of her procured all his woe. Under the wood she turns her horse in haste, and takes a little narrow path and blind. Her fearful looks oft times she back doth cast, still doubting lest Rinaldo came behind. And when that she a little way had passed, alow the vale a hermit she did find, a weak old man with beard along his breast, in show devout and holier than the rest. He seemed like one with fasts and age consumed. He rode upon a slothful going ass, and by his look a man would have presumed that of his conference scrupulous he was. Conscience, that's what it is. That of his conscience scrupulous he was, yet her young face his old sight so illumed, when as he saw the damsel by to pass, though weak and faint as such an age behooved, that charity his courage somewhat moved. The damsel of the hermit asked the way that might unto some haven town lead most near. Haven, one syllable. Haven town. Haven. That she might part from France without delay, where once Rinaldo's name she might not hear. The friar that could enchant doth all he may to comfort her and make of her good cheer, and to her safety promising to look, out of his bag forthwith he drew a book of skill and learning so profound, that of a leaf he had not made an end, but that there arose a sprite from underground, whom like a page he doth of errands send. This sprite by words of secret virtue bound goes where these knights their combat did intend, and while they two were fighting very hard, he enters them between without regard. Good sirs, quoth he, for courtesy's sake me show, when one of you the t'other shall have slain, and after all the travel you bestow, what guerdon you expect for all your pain. Behold, Orlando, striking near a blow, nor breaking staff, while you strive here in vain, to Paris ward the lady fair doth carry, while you on fighting undiscreetly tarry. I saw from hence a mile or thereabout Orlando with Angelica alone. And as for you, they jest and make a flout, that fight where praise and profit can be none. 'Twere best you quickly went to seek them out, before that any farther they be gone. Within the walls of Paris if they get your eye on her again, you shall not fet. Or is that set? It's gotta be set. When as the knights this message had received, they both remained amazed, dumb, and sad, to hear Orlando had them so deceived, of whom before great jealousy they had. But good Rinaldo so great grief conceived, that for the time, like one all raging mad, he sware without regard of God or man, that he will kill Orlando if he can. And seeing where his horse stood still untied, he thither goes, such haste he makes away, he offers not the pagan leave to ride, nor at the parting once adieu doth say. Now Bayard felt his master's spurs inside, and gallops main, ne maketh any stay. No rivers, rocks, no hedge, nor ditches wide could stay his course or make him step aside. Nor marvel if Rinaldo made some haste to mount again upon his horse's back. You heard before how many days had passed, that by his absence he had felt great lack. The horse that had of human wit some taste ran not away for any jadish knack. His going only was to this intent, to guide his master where the lady went. The horse had spied her when she took her flight, first from the tent as he thereby did stand, and followed her and kept her long in sight, as then by hap out of his master's hand. His master did not long before alight, to combat with a baron hand to hand. The horse pursued the damsel all about, to hope his master still to find her out. The baron was Rogero. Okay. He followed her through valley, hill, and plain, through woods and thickets, for his master's sake, whom he permitted not to touch the rein, for fear lest he some other way should take, by which Rinaldo, though with mickle pain, twice found her out, twice she did him forsake. For first Ferraw, then Sacripant withstood, that by twice finding her he did no good. Bayardo, trusting to the lying sprite, whose false but likely tale so late he heard, and doubting not it was both true and right, he doth his duty now with due regard. Rinaldo, pricked with love and raging spite, doth prick apace, and all to Paris ward. To Paris ward he maketh so great shift, the wind itself seems not to go so swift. Such haste he made Orlando out to find, that scant he ceased to travel all the night, so deeply stacked the story in his mind, that was of late devised by the sprite. Betimes and late, as first he had assigned, he rode until he saw the town in sight. Where Charles, whose chance all christened heart, where Charles, whose chance all christened hearts did, or rue, I didn't see that. When Charles, whose chance all christened hearts did rue, with the small relics of his power withdrew. And for he looks to be assaulted then, or else besieged, he useth all his care to store himself with victual and with men. The walls eke of the town he doth repair, and take advice both how and where and when, for his defence each thing he may prepare. An army new to make he doth intend, and 4 new soldiers into England send. He minds to take the field again ere long, and try the hap of war another day, and all in haste to make himself more strong, he sends Rinaldo England's aid to pray. Rinaldo thought the emperor did him wrong, to send him in such haste, and grant no stay. Not that ill will to th' island he did carry, but for another cause he fain would tarry. Yet now, although full sore against his mind, as loath to leave the lady he so loved, whom he in Paris hoped had to find, because to obey his prince it him behooved, he taketh this ambassage thus assigned, and having straight all other lets removed, he posted first to Calais with great haste, and there embarked ere half next day was past. Against the mariners' and masters' minds, such haste he made to have returned back. He takes the sea, though swelling with great winds, and threatening ruin manifest with and wrack. Fierce Boreas that himself despised finds, doth beat on seas with tempest foul and black, by force whereof the waves were raised so high, the very tops were sprinkled all thereby. The mariners take in their greater sail, and by the wind they lie, but all in vain. Then back again they bend without avail. Now they are out, they cannot in again. No, said the wind, my force shall so prevail, your bold attempts shall put you to some pain. It was a folly any more to strive, needs must they follow as the wind did drive. In the foreship sometimes the blast doth blow, straight in the poop the seas break to the skies. Needs must they bear a sail, though very low, to void the waves that higher still did rise. But sith my web so diverse now doth grow, to weave with many threads I must devise. I leave Rinaldo in this dangerous place, and of his sister speak a little space. I mean the noble damsel Bradamant, of Ammon daughter, and Dame Beatrice, in whose rare mind no noble part did want, so full of value, and so void of vice. King Charles in France of her might rightly vaunt, so chaste, so fair, so faithful, and so wise, and in the feats of arms of so great fame, a man might guess by that of whence she came. There was a knight enamoured on this dame, that out of Afric came with Agramant. Rogero hight, so was his father's name. His mother was the child of Agalant, the damsel that of worthy lineage came, and had a heart not made of adamant. Disdained not the love of such a knight, although he had but seld been in her fight, in her sight. These S's. Long travel and great pain she had endured, and rid alone her lover to have found. Ne would she think her safety more assured, if with an army she were guarded round. You heard before how she by force procured King Sacripant to fall and kiss the ground. The wood she passed, and after that the mountain, until at last she saw a goodly fountain running in a field, all full of trees, whose leaves do never fade, which did to passengers great pleasure yield. The running stream so sweet a murmur made. Upon the south a hill the sun did shield. The ground gave flowers, the grove a grateful shade. Now here the dame, casting her eye aside, a man at arms, fast by the brook descried. A man at arms she spied by the brook, whose banks with flowers of divers hue were clad, of which sweet place he so small pleasure took, his face did show his heart was nothing glad. His targe and helmet were not far to look, upon a tree where tied his horse he had. His eyes were swoln with tears, his mind oppressed with bitter thoughts that had his heart distressed. The damsel fair, enticed by deep desire, that all, but chiefly women, have to know, all strangers' states, doth earnestly require the doleful knight his inward grief to show, who marking well her manner and attire, his courteous speech with him prevailed so, he tells his state, esteeming by the sight, that needs she must have been some noble knight. Good sir, said he, you first must understand, I served Charles against the King of Spain. I horsemen had and footmen in my band, in ambush placed the Spanish king to have slain. I brought the fairest lady in this land, and my best loved with me in my train, when suddenly, ere I thereof was ware, there came a horseman that procured my care. Perhap a man, or some infernal sprite, in human shape, I cannot certain say. But this I say, he took the damsel bright, e'en as a falcon seizeth on his prey. So he my loving lady did affright, and so affrighted bare her quite away. And when I thought to rescue her by force, aloft in air he mounted with his horse. E'en as a ravenous kite that doth espy a little chicken wandering from the other, doth catch him straight and carries him on high, that now repents he was not with his mother. What could I do? My horse wants wings to fly. Scant could he set one leg before the t'other. He travelled had before so many days among the painful hills and stony ways. But like to one that were his wit beside, I leave my men to do my first intent. Not caring of myself what should betide, so strongly to my fancy was I bent, and took the blind god Cupid for my guide. By ways as blind to seek my love I went. And though my sense, my guide, my way were blind, yet on I go in hope my love to find. A se'nnight space, abating but a day, about the woods and mountains I did range, in savage deserts wild and void of way, where human steps were rare and very strange. Fast by the desert place a plain there lay, that showed from the rest but little change, save only that a castle full of wonder did stand in rocks that had been cloven asunder. This castle shines like flaming fire afar, not made of lime and stone as ours are here. And still as I approached a little gnar, more wonderful the building doth appear. It is a fort impregnable by war, compacted all of metal shining clear. The fiends of hell this fort of steel did make, of metal tempered in the Stygian lake. The towers are all of steel and polished bright. There is on them no spot or any rust. It shines by day, by dark it giveth light. Here dwells this robber, wicked and unjust, and what he gets against all laws and right, the lawless wretch abuseth here by lust. And here he keeps my fair and faithful lover, without all hope that I may her recover. Ah, woe was me, in vain I fought to help. I see the place that keeps there I love best. Or that, rather, that keeps that I love best. E'en as a fox that crying hears her whelp, now borne aloft into the eagle's nest. About the tree she goes, and fain would help, but is constrained for want of wings to rest. The rock so steep, the castle is so high, none can get in except they learn to fly. And as I tarried in the plain, behold, I saw two knights come riding down the plain, led by desire and hope to win this hold, but their desire and hope was all in vain. Gradasso was the first of courage bold, a king of Sarachan that held the reign. Rogero next, a man of noble nation, of years but young, but of great estimation. A little dwarf they had to be their guide, who told me that they came to try their force against the champion that doth use to ride out of this castle on the winged horse. Which when I heard, to them for help I cried, and prayed them of my case to take remorse, and that they would, if 'twere their chance to win, set free my love that there was locked in. And all my grief to them I did unfold, affirming with my tears my tale too true. No sooner I my heavy hap had told, but they were come within the castle's view. I stood aloof the battle to behold, and prayed to God good fortune might ensue. Beneath the castle lies a little plain, exceeding not an arrow. Looks like shore, but should be shoot. Oh well. And as they talked who first should fight or last, they were arrived to the castle hill. At length Gradasso, whether lots were cast, or that Rogero yielded to his will, doth take his horn, and blew therewith a blast, the noise whereof the castle walls did fill. And straight with greater speed than can be guessed came out the rider of the flying beast. And as we see strange cranes are wont to do, first stalk a while ere they their wings can find, then soar from ground not past a yard or two, till in their wings they gathered have the wind. At last they mount the very clouds unto, triangle-wise, according to their kind. So by degrees this mage begins to fly. The bird of Jove can hardly mount so high. Oops. And when he sees his time and thinks it best, he falleth down like lead in fearful guise. E'en as the falcon doth the fowl arrest, the duck and mallard from the brook that rise, so he descending with his spear in rest, doth pierce the air in strange and monstrous wise. And ere Gradasso were thereof admonished, he felt a stripe that made him half astonished. The mage upon Gradasso brake his spear, who strikes in vain upon the air and wind. Away he flew without or hurt or fear, and leaves Gradasso many a pace behind. This fierce encounter was so hard to bear that good Alfana to the ground inclined. This same Alfana was Gradasso's mare, the fairest and best that ever saddle bare. Aloft the stars the sorcerer doth ascend, and wheels about, and down he comes again, and on Rogero he his force doth bend, that had compassion on Gradasso's pain. So sore the assault Rogero did offend, his horse the force thereof could not sustain, and when to strike again he made account, he saw his foe up to the clouds to mount. Sometimes the mage Rogero doth assail, straightway Gradasso he doth set upon, and oft they strike again without avail, so quickly he at whom they strike is gone. He winds about as ships do under sail, his sails are wings, and rest he gives them none, but sets upon them in so sudden wise that he amazed and dazzled both their eyes. Between this one aloft and two alow, this conflict did no little space endure, until at last the night began to grow, with misty clouds making the world obscure. I saw this sight, the truth thereof I know, I present was thereat. Yet am I sure that very few, except the wiser sort, will credence give to such a strange report. This heavenly hellish warrior bare a shield on his left arm that had a silken case. I cannot any cause or reason yield why he would keep it covered so long space. It had such force that whoso it beheld, such shining light it striketh in their face, that down they fall with eyes and senses closed, and leave their corpse of him to be disposed. The target like the carbuncle doth shine, such light was never seen with mortal eye, it makes to ground the lookers on decline, be they far off, or be they standing nigh. And as it closed their sight, it closed mine, that in a trance no little space was I. At last when I awaked and rose again, the air was dark, and voided was the plain. The sorcerer hath ta'en them, I surmise, into his castle, as is likely most, and by this light that dazzled all our eyes, my hope is gone, their liberty is lost. This is the truth, need do I aught devise. You hear the same, I felt it to my cost. Now judge if I have reason to complain, that have and do endure such endless pain. When as this knight his doleful tale had done, he sat him down, all cheerless in the place. This was Earl Penabel, and Selma's son, born in Maganza, of that wicked race, who like the rest so lewd a course did run. He holp the more his lineage to deface. For only virtue nobleness doth dignify, and vicious life a lineage base doth signify. The lady fair, attentive all this while, doth hearken unto this Maganze's tale. Rogero's name sometime doth make her smile, sometime again for fear she looketh pale. But hearing how a sorcerer base and vile should in a castle so detain him thrall, she pitied him, and in her mind she fretted, and oft desired to hear the tale repeated. When at the last the whole she understood, she said, Sir knight, mourn not, but take some pleasure. Perhaps our meeting may be to your good, and turn your enemy unto displeasure. Show me this fort, for why it frets my blood, so foul a prison holds so fair a treasure, and if good fortune favor mine intent, you will right well suppose your travel spent. Ah, said the knight, should I return again to pass these mountains hard and overthwart? Though for myself it is but little pain to toil my body, having lost my heart, for you to go whereas you may be slain, or taken prisoner were a foolish part, which if it hap, yet me you cannot blame, because I give you warning of the same. This said, he riseth up his horse to take the noble lady on the way to guide, who means to venture for Rogero's sake, or death or thraldom, or whate'er betide. But lo, a messenger great haste doth make, that comes behind, and tarry ho, he cried. This was the post that told to Sacripant how she that foiled him was Dame Bradamant. This messenger brought tidings in great post, both from Narbona and from Montpelier, how they were up in arms along the coast of Aquamort, and all that dwelled near, and how Marfilia's men, their hearts had lost. Because of her no tidings they could hear, and for her absence made them ill paid. They sent to have her presence and her aid. These towns and others many to the same. Many to the same. What? Between the streams of Rodon and of Vare, the emperor had assigned this worthy dame, committing them unto her trust and care. Her noble value gat her all this fame, because in arms herself she bravely bare, and so the cities under her subjection this message sent, requiring her direction. Which when she heard, it made her somewhat pause. Twixt yea and no she stood a pretty space. Of one side honor and her office draws, on the other side love helps to plead the case. At last she means to ensue the present cause, and fetch Rogero from the enchanted place, and if her force cannot to this attain, at least with him a prisoner to remain. In courteous sort her answer she contrived with gracious words, and sent away the post. She longs with her new guide to have arrived to that same place where both their loves were lost. But he, perceiving now she was derived from Claremont that he detested most, doth hate her sore, and feareth to the same, lest she should know he of Maganza came. Wait, so there's some kind of war going on? There was between these houses ancient hate, this of Maganza, that of Claremont Mount, each of them had weakened other state by killing men in both of great account. This Pinabel, a vile and wicked mate, that all his kin and vices did surmount, means with himself this damsel to betray, or else to slip aside and go his way. And this same fancy so his head did fill, with hate, with fear, with anger, and with doubt, that he mistook the way against his will, and knew not how again to find it out, till in the wood he saw a little hill, bare on the top, where men might look about. But Bradamant such amorous passions feels, she followeth like a spaniel at his heels. The crafty guide, thus wandering in the wood, intending now the lady to beguile, said unto her, forsooth he thought it good, sith night grew on, themselves to rest awhile. Here is, quoth he, and showed which way it stood, a castle fair, and hence not many a mile. But tarry you a little here, until I may descry the country from the hill. This said, he mounted to the higher ground, and standing now the highest part upon, he cast about his eyes and looked round, to find some path whereby he might be gone. When unawares a monstrous cave he found, and strange cut out, and hollowed in the stone. Deep 30 cubits down it doth descend, having a fair large gate at lower end. Such as great stately houses want to have, out of which gate proceeds a shining light that all within most lightsome makes the cave. And all this while, on this felonious night, this noble lady due attendance gave, and never suffered him go out of sight. She followed Pinabel hard at his back, because she was afeard to lose the track. When as this villain traitor did espy that his designments foolish were and vain, either to leave her or to make her die, he thought it best to try a further train, persuading her for to defend and try. What ladies fair within the cave remain? Descend and try. For why, said he, within this little space I saw a goodly damsel in the place, both rich arrayed and very fair of hue, like one of noble lineage and degree. And this her fortune made me more to rue, that here against her will she seemed to be. For when I thought for to descend and view the cause of this her grief to know and see, I was no sooner from my horse alighted, but with infernal hags I was affrighted. The noble Bradamant that was more stout than wary, who it was did her persuade. Hath such desire to help a damsel out, help her out, that straight the cave she meaneth to invade. She finds by hap a long bough thereabout, thereof a pole of mighty length she made. First with her sword she hews and pares it fit, that done she lets it down into the pit. She giveth Pinabel the bigger end, and prays him stand above and hold it fast. And by the same, intending to descend, upon her arms her whole weight she doth cast. But he that to destroy her did intend, doth ask if she would learn to leap a cast, and laughing loosed his hands that were together, and wished that all the race of them were with her. Yet great good hap the gentle damsel found, as well deserved a mind so innocent. For why the pole strake first upon the ground, and though by force it shivered all and rent, yet were her limbs and life kept safe and sound, for all his vile and traitorous intent. Sore was the damsel mazed with the fall, as in another book declare I shall. I don't understand why she wouldn't also get hurt, in addition to the pole. Okay, here's the moral. How the passion of love, together with the terms that men stand upon for the reputation and credit, are oftentimes occasions of bitter quarrels, and their sudden parting and great perplexity that both of them were stricken into by the false tale that the spirit told them of Orlando. We may gather how very apt jealousy is to conceive and believe every false report. I'm not going to keep reading these. Well, we should go look at the picture. I guess we start down here. Sacripant Ronaldo fighting, the horse not cooperating, Angelica runs away. Fight on foot. Is that the messenger? No, the messenger was in the first. That's the sprite, maybe. I don't know. Angelica finds a hermit. Ronaldo runs off to Paris. Messenger. Pinabel finds Bradamant, tells him the story. Tells her the story. they go to this hole on the hill. Pinabel drops her in there. Oh, and Ronaldo goes to England. Wow. Canto number 3. Fair Bradamant was fallen in Merlin's cave. Melissa meets her there, her ancient friend. And there to her she perfect notice gave of such brave men as should from her descend. She told her where she should Rogero have, whom old Atlanta had in prison penned, and from Brunello how to take the ring that unto liberty her dear might bring. Oh, that my head were so well stored with skill of such a noble subject fit to treat. Oh, that my wits were equal to my will to frame a phrase fit for so high conceit. Ye muses that do hold the sacred hill, inspire my heart with flame of learned heat, while I presume in base and lowly verse the names of glorious princes to rehearse. Such princes as excel all princes far, in all the gifts of body and of mind, temperate in peace, victorious eke in war, themselves most noble, come of noble kind, and such, except my guests, do greatly err, as are by heaven's eternal doom assigned, in wealth, in fame, in rule, and in prosperity, to live themselves, their children, and posterity. Nor can I now their several acts most rare, achieved by every one of them, recite. No, though my verse with Virgil's might compare, or I as well as Homer could indite. With their great praise, great volumes filled are, with large discourse by them that stories write. I only mean to show what was foreshown, long ere their persons or their deeds were known. But first of Pinabel a word to speak, who, as you heard, with traitorous intent, the bonds of all humanity did break, for which ere long himself was after shent. Thus while base minds their wrongs do basely wreak, they do that once that often they repent, and curse that time 1,000 times too late, when they pursued their unrevenged hate. With fainting heart, for sin is full of fear, by stealing steps from hence he doth depart. And as he goes, he prieth here and there, with his fearful look bewrays his guilty heart, nor yet his dread doth move him to forbear, to heap more sin upon this ill desert. Appalled with fear, but touched with no remorse, supposing she was slain, he takes her horse. But let him go until another time, for I do mean hereafter you shall hear how he was dealt with when his double crime in secret wrought most open did appear. Now unto Bradamant I bend my rhyme, who with her fall was yet of heavy cheer, and had been taught a gamble for the nonce, to give her death and burial all at once. Now when she came unto herself again, and had recovered memory and sense, she gets her on her feet, although with pain, in mind to seek some way to get from thence, when lo, before her face she seeth plain a stately portal built with great expense, and next behind the same she might descry a larger room and fairer to the eye. This was a church most solemn and devout, that stands on marble pillars small and round, and raised by art on arches all about, that made each voice to yield a double sound. A lightsome lamp that never goeth out did burn on altar standing in the ground, that though the rooms were large and wide in space, the lamp did serve to lighten all the place. The noble damsel, full of reverent fear, when as herself in sacred place she sees, as one that still a godly mind did bear, begins to pray to him upon her knees, whose holy side was pierced with cruel spear, and who to save our lives his own did lose. And while she stays devoutly at her prayer, the sage Melissa doth to her repair. Her gown ungirt, her hair about her head, much like a priest or prophetess arrayed. And in her book a little while she read, and after thus unto the damsel said, O thou by God's appointment hither led, O Bradamant, most wise and worthy maid, I long have looked here for this thy coming, foretold thereof by prophet Merlin's cunning. Here's the tomb that Merlin erst did make by force of secret skill and hidden art, in which sometimes the lady of the lake, that with her beauty had bewitched his heart, did make him enter fondly for her sake, from whence he never after could depart. And he was by a woman overreached, that unto others prophesied and preached. His carcass dead within this stone is bound, but with dead corse the living soul doth dwell, and shall until it hear the trumpet sound that brings reward of doing ill or well. His voice doth live and answer and expound, and things both present, past, and future tell. Both present, past, and future. Resolving men of every doubtful case, that for his counsel come unto this place. About a month, or little more or less, it is since I repaired to Merlin's grave. Of him about the study I profess some precepts and instructions to have. And for I willing was, I must confess, to meet you at your coming to this cave, for which he did prefix this certain day. This moved me of purpose here to stay. Duke Ammon's daughter silent stands and still, the while the wise Melissa to her spake, astonished at this unusual skill, and doubting if she were asleep or wake. A modest shame with grace her eyes doth fill, with which downcast this answer she doth make. Alas, what good or merit is in me, that prophet should my coming so foresee? And glad of this adventure unexpected, she followeth her guide with great delight, and straight she saw the stately tomb erected, of marble pure that held his bones and sprite. And that which one would little have suspected, the very marble was so clear and bright, that though the sun no light unto it gave, the tomb itself did lighten all the cave. For whether by the nature of some stone, for whether be the nature of some stone, a darksome place with lightsomeness to fill, or were it done by magic art alone, or else by help of mathematic skill, to make transparencies to meet in one, and so convey the sunbeams where you will. But sure it was most curious to behold, set forth with carved works and gilt with gold. Now when the damsel was approached nigher to this strange tomb where Merlin's bones were placed, forth of the stones that shine like flaming fire, his lively voice such speeches out doth cast. Let fortune ever favor thy desire, O Bradamant, thou noble maid and chaste, from out whose womb an issue shall proceed, that all the world in glory shall exceed. The noble blood that came of ancient Troy, by two clear springs and thee together mixed, shall breed the flower, the jewel, and the joy of all on whom the sun his beams hath fixed, twixt those that heat and those that cold annoy. From Tage to Ind, Danube and Nile betwixt, emperors and kings and dukes and lords for aye, of this thy lineage carry shall the sway. And many a captain brave and worthy knight shall issue from this stock, that shall restore by warlike feats the glory shining bright that Italy possessed heretofore, the magistrates to maintain peace and right, as Numa and Augustus did before, to cherish virtue, vice so to assuage, as shall to us bring back the golden age. Assuage vice. Wherefore, sith God hath by predestination appointed thee to be Rogero's wife, and means to bless thine heirs and generation with all the graces granted in this life, all the graces granted in this life. Persist thou firm in thy determination, and stoutly overcome each storm of strife, and work his worthy punishment and pain that doth thy live's delight from thee detain. This said, the prophet Merlin holds his peace, and gives Melissa time to work her will, who when she did perceive the voice to cease, she purposeth by practice of her skill to show the damsel part of that increase that should with fame the world hereafter fill. And for this purpose she did then assemble a troop of sprites, their persons to resemble, who straight by words of secret virtue bound. I feel like we already saw a line that was almost exactly the same as that. In numbers great, under the cave repair, of whence I know not, whether underground, or else of those that wander in the air. Then thrice she draws about a circle round, and thrice she hallows it with secret prayer. Then opens she a triple clasped book, and softly whispering in it she doth look. This done, she takes the damsel by the hand, exhorting her she should not be afraid, and in a circle causeth her to stand, and for her more security and aid, and as it were for more what? Looks like assigned. Could be affined. Maybe. For more affined band. Upon her head some characters she laid, then having done her due and solemn rites, she doth begin to call upon the sprites. Behold, a crew of them come rushing in sundry shapes, with persons great and tall, and now they fill it all the room within, so readily they came unto her call. When Bradamant to fear did straight begin, her heart was cold, her colour waxed pall. But yet the circle kept her like a wall, so that she needed not to fear at all. Howbeit Melissa caused them be gone from thence unto the next adjoining cave, and thence to come before them one by one, the better notice of their names to have, that at more leisure they may talk thereon, when as occasion so may seem to crave. Although, quoth she, this short time cannot serve to speak of every one as they deserve. Lo, here the first, thy first begotten son, that bears thy favour and his father's name, by whom the Lombards shall in fight be won. To Desiderius, their king's great shame, who shall at Ponter make the streams to run with blood, and fields adjoining to the same, and shall revenge the deeds and minds unpure of such as did his father's fall procure. And for this noble act among the rest, the emperor shall give him in reward the honors great of Callion and Est, by which his family shall be preferred. The next Uberto is, whose valiant breast shall be unto the church a guard. I think there's an adjective missing there. Defending it with valiant heart and hand, to the honor of Hesperian arms and land. Alberto is he is named that third comes in, whose triumphs are most famous everywhere. Then his son Hugo that did Milan win, and for his crest 2 vipers used to bear. Next Atso is, and next to him of kin, that erst of Lombardy the crown shall wear. Then Albertasso, by whose means are won the Berengers, both father and the son. To him shall Othin's favor so incline, he shall in marriage give to him his daughter. Now Hugo comes again, O happy line and happy man, that saved so great a slaughter. When at Christ's vicar's rule Rome did repine, he daunted them, and so restored them after, the which by wit without the dint of sword he shall effect in Othin's time the third. Now Fulco comes, that to his brothers gave his land in Italy, which was not small, and dwelt in Almany, his land to save of Samphony that unto him did fall, a dukedom great that did with castles brave accrue to him for want of issue male. By him that noble house is held and cherished, that but for him would be extinct and perished. Then cometh Atso, that misliketh war, but yet his sons Bertold and Albertas with second Henry shall be still at jar, and bring the Dutchman to a woeful pass. Next young Rinaldo, shining like a star, shall be unto the church a wall of brass, and work the utter overthrow and loss of wicked Frederick, named Barbaros. Behold, another Atso shall possess Verona with a stately territory. Of Oton and Honorius, no less, shall be a Marcus, made to his great glory. It would be long their names all to express, that shall protect the sacred consistory. Is it consistory? And in most valorous and martial manner display and eke defend the church's banner. Obizo next, and Fulco you may view, with Henry's 2, the father and the son, both Guelphs that fruitful Humbria shall subdue, and keep the dukedom there by conquest won. Behold him that the good state doth renew of Italy that late was quite undone, called Atso fifth, that bravely overthrew the cruel Esselino and him slew. That cruel Esselino that was thought to have been gotten by some wicked devil, that never any goodness had been taught, but sold his soul to sin and doing evil. Comparing with the cruel acts he wrought, fierce Nero were but mild, and Sylla civil. Beside this, Atso shall in time to come the power of second Frederick overcome. And then he shall his brother Albandrine under the Florentines for money gauge. And Othin with the faction Gebeline he shall suppress amid the furious rage, and raise the church, nor letting it decline, but spending to defend it all his age. For which good service he shall justly merit the dukedom of Ferrara to inherit. Wait, did I finish that page? Okay. Next him Rinaldo now ensueth, whose lot shall be at Naples to be made away, a death his virtuous deeds deserved not. But woe to them that guiltless blood betray. Now followeth a worthy crew, and not, whose acts alone to tell would spend a day. Obizo, Nicholas, and Albrandine, whose noble deeds shall honor much their line. Then Nicholas is he that next ensueth, that ruled in tender years both near and far, that finds and eke revengeth their untruth, that sought his state by civil strife to mar. The sports and exercises of his youth are blows and fights, and dangers great and war, which makes that ere to manly state he came, for martial deeds he gets the only name. Lo, Lionel, the glory of his age, maintaining peace and quiet all his time, and keeping that with ease by wisdom sage, to which some others by much pain do climb. That fettered fury and rebuked rage that locks up Mars in walls of stone and lime. That all his wit, his care, and travel bent to make his subjects live in state content. Oh, the tenses are just confusing. Now Hercules comes, a Hercules indeed, whose deeds shall merit ever-during fame, that by his pains his country's ease shall breed, and put his enemies to flight and shame, sharp to devise, to execute with speed, both stout to attempt and patient to the same. No prince shall ever rule his country better, no prince had ever country more his debtor. Not only that he shall their Moorish grounds by great expense to pasture firm reduce, not the town with wall environ round, and store with things behooveful to their use. Not that when war in each place shall abound, he shall maintain them peaceably in truce. Not that he shall, according to their asking, disburden them of payments and of tasking. But that he shall, more and above all these, leave them behind him such a worthy race, as search within the circuit of the seas, you shall not find two to supply their place. So shall the one the other strive to please, so shall the one the other's love embrace, as may for loving brotherly regard with Castor and with Pollux be compared. The elder of these two Alfonso hight, the next of them Hippolito we call, both passing stout and valiant in fight, both passing wise and provident withal, and both in due defence of country's right shall seem a bulwark and a brazen wall. They both shall have of enemies good store, they both shall still subdue them evermore. Their mother, if I may a mother name, one more like Progny and Medea fell unto her endless infamy and shame, against her son Alfonso shall rebel, and join with Venice force for this to blame. Though for the same ere long they paid full well, for those they thought to hurt they did this good, to make the ground more fruitful with their blood. Not far from thence the Spanish soldier hired by pastor's purse, and in that pastor's pay, that with a forcible assault aspired to take a fort, and eke the captain slay. But lo, he comes, and they perforce retired, and have so short a pleasure of this prey, scarce one of them in life is left abiding to carry notice of so heavy tiding. By pastor's purse. His wit and valor shall him so advance to have the honor of Romania field, where by his means unto the force of France the Pope and Spaniards forced are to yield, and there in Christian blood, O fatal chance, shall horses swim, such number shall be killed, nor shall not men enough alive remain to bury those that are in battle slain. The while his brother under cardinal's cap shall cover, nay, shall show a prudent head. Hippolito, I mean, who shall have hap, with band of men but small yet wisely led, to give to the Venetians such a clap as few the like in stories have been read. To take 3 times 5 galleys at one tide, and barks and boats 1,000 more beside. Behold 2 Sigismunds, both wise and grave, Alfonso next, whose fame is talked of rife, with his 5 sons, then Hercules, that shall have the King of France his daughter to his wife. The King of France's daughter, that towards him herself shall so behave, shall make him live most happy all his life. Hippolito it is that now comes in, nor least for praise and glory of his kin. Next Francis named 3rd, Alfonso's 2, with many others worthy of renown, the which no to name might find one work to do, from Phoebus rising to his going down. Now therefore, if you will consent thereto, I here will end, and send the spirits down. To this the worthy damsel said not nay, and straight the spirits vanished all away. Then Bradamant, that all well marked had, of whom herself should be the ancient mother, did say to learn she would be very glad what 2 those were that differed from the other, that came with backward steps and looked so sad upon the good Alfonso and his brother. Melissa sighs, misliking that suggestion, which put it in her heart to ask this question. And then, as in a trance, these words she spake: O thou more worthy son of worthy sire, they are thy blood. On them compassion take, let grace assuage, though justice kindle ire. Then unto Bradamant, as new awake, I must, said she, deny you this desire. I say no more, content you with the sweet. For you this sour morsel is not meat. Tomorrow, when the sun at break of day with light shall dim the light of every star, I mean myself to guide you on your way, so as I will be sure you shall not err. The place whereas your love is forced to stay is from the salt sea shore not very far, that were you past a mile beyond this wood, the other way would easy be and good. Of this night's stay the damsel was content, and in the cave with her she doth remain, and most thereof in Merlin's tomb she spent, whose voice with talk did her still entertain, emboldening her to give her free consent, to love where she should sure be loved again. Now gan the messenger of day to crow, when as her guide and she awaited go. The way they went was dark and inaccessible, by secret vaults and hollows of the hill. To find it out had been a thing impossible, but with a guide of knowledge great and skill. At last they came unto a path more passable, by which they ceased not to ascend until they quite had left the dark and loathsome place, and saw the beams of Phoebus' cheerful face. And while that up this hill they slowly stalk, with pausing panting oft, and taking wind, they make less weary seem their weary walk. Melissa still doth store of matter find, and now of this, and then of that doth talk. But chiefly she the damsel puts in mind of her Rogero, how he had been trained into the prison where he now remained. Atlanta, that magician strange, is he that holdeth him, I trust, unto his cost.
But had you Pallas, strength, or Mars, quoth she, and eke of armed men a mighty host, yet to attempt by force to set him free, your travel and your labor all were lost. Art must be won by art, and not by might. Force cannot free your well-beloved knight. For first the castle mounted is on high, impregnable with walls all over steeled. And next the horse he rides hath wings to fly, and gallops in the air as in the field. And last he dazzleth every mortal eye by hidden force of his enchanted shield, with light whereof men's senses are so dazed, with sight thereof they fall down all amazed. In all the world one only mean hath been, and is yet still, to work so rare a feat. A ring there is, which from an Indian queen was stole sometime, of price and virtue great. This ring can make a man to go unseen. This ring can all enchantments quite defeat. King Agramant hath sent his secretary under Rogero this same ring to carry. Brunello in his name is his name that hath the ring, most lewd and false, but politic and wise, and put in trust especial by his king, with it Rogero's safety to devise, which sith I wish not he but you should bring, to bind him to you by this enterprise, and for I would not have the Turk protect him, because I know he greatly doth affect him. Do therefore this, when you do meet this man, whose marks I wish in memory you bear. His stature is 2 cubits and a span, his head is long and grey and thin of hair, his nose is short and flat, his colour wan, his beetle brow eyes watery not with tear, his beard grows on his face all without all stint, and to conclude, his look is all a squint. Now when as you this comely man shall meet, as sure you shall within a day or two, you may with courteous words him seem to greet, and tell him partly what you mean to do, but speak not of the ring, although you see it, for so you may the matter all undo. Then he great courtesy to you will offer, and straight his company to you will proffer. And when unto the castle you come nigh, then see you set upon him on the way, and take away the ring and make him die, nor give him any time, lest he convey the ring into his mouth, and so thereby out of your sight he vanish quite away. The worthy damsel marks her speeches well, and so the one the other bids farewell. Next day she happed Brunello to espy, she knew him straight, she found him at her inn. She grows to question with him by, and he to lie doth by and by begin. And she dissembles too, and doth deny her country, stock and name, and sex and kin. Brunello pleasantly doth talk and tipple, but knowing he did halt before a cripple, not knowing he did halt before a cripple. Now when they almost broken had their fast, she marking more his fingers than his eyes, when much good talk between them two had passed, the most whereof were false and forged lies, behold mine host came unto them in haste, and told them news that made them sooner rise. But here I mean to make a little pause before I tell what was thereof the cause. Oh, that's the end. We note in Bradomant a worthy example of devotion, that in her sudden mishap had recourse to prayer. That took up like one stanza. The great praise return. It's time to go look at the picture. there's Melissa and Bradamant. They're going to Merlin's tomb. Shows her the spirits of her progeny. Then up above, Pinnabel steals her horse. Melissa leads Bradamant up above. Bradamant goes off to meet Brunello. That's all for today.